presented as very great and important by the prosecutor, by the state, and say, well, no, there's nothing here. This is a non-entity. These claims are specious, right? They are claims that are ersatz. They're false. They're phony. They cannot stand. We will not stand them. We will let them fall to the ground, as if there are so much, so much things that are not part of the desiderata, not part of the things that we desire as we the people here in Hamilton County, or we here in this U.S. district, right? The U.S. district whose headquarters is the fortress, the Joel Solomon building, there by the bucolic Miller Park downtown in Chattanooga. Well, my name is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving me a couple of minutes of your time. The idea of nullification is essentially the idea of democracy. Now, I'm like the founding fathers. I think democracy is something that we should all despise. Democracy is not a political system that works, right? The founders, to a man, maybe Thomas Paine was sympathetic to democracy, since he had been infected with the French Revolution bug in his stay there. But to a man, with the exception of him, perhaps among the so-called founders, the idea of democracy was anathema, and that is because it was not a government at all. It was a simple tyranny of the majority, and that is, of course, is not where justice is to be found. Justice is always to be found in law. It is to be found in equity. Let me ask you, where does equity come from? Well, it comes from Christianity. It comes from the Ten Commandments, which is probably the most perfect summation, very short form summary of equity, declaring out in the details, of course, what God expects of men, what their duty is to Him, and then what their duty is among themselves in society. That's what the Ten Commandments is, a summary of equity. Equity personified, of course, in the Lord Jesus Christ, as Christianity teaches. But equity is where things are right and rightly ironed out and rightly spread out, and there is a center, and the center is in the relationship between God and man, and then among men themselves, which that relationship solves in Christianity a major philosophical problem, just by the way, and that is called the problem of the one and the many. And Christianity alone solves that dilemma of the one, meaning the people, the totality of people, right? The state, the king, the unitary assembly of people. That's the one, or the many, which is to say you, my listener, the individual. How do we find a balance between these two ends, right? These two opposites, which are intended to be harmonious, and yet because of the fall, and you might say the sin problem, we have constantly a struggle between ultra individualism and lawlessness and antinomianism on one hand, or on the other, you have the absolute state, right? The absolute monarch, the totalitarian, authoritarian society, which does not allow for individualism and distinctions, right? Those are the two extremes, the two opposites in the created order. And so Christianity solves that problem. Well, the jury is a way of bringing to a halt, bringing to a limit the claims of the one that says our law solves all problems, and anyone who dares to cross a T or not cross a T on the form, that person has committed an offense, right? He forgot to fill out a form that had a back page, and because he forgot to fill out that back page and sign that back page, this is an offense, and he has to be put into jail for a year, violating the Clean Water Act in some way, right? That's the kind of thing that the good people are very good at doing. It's called strict liability. So the jury is the way in which local economy, which is to say people like you, reflecting the many, right, can say no to the one being the holy corporation, if you will, of the modern state, that being Tennessee, that being perhaps the United States. And there is a great conflict on this question today here in Tennessee, because the governor, Bill Haslam, a Republican, and his cohorts have done what Republicans have always done, and that is yield to power and play in power, not caring about the people, and really in the end, not caring about the law. Republicans are as lawless as Democrats. They have their own flavor of it, and they have their own rhetoric in which they coat their estimation, their high estimation for the modern state. Republicans are not friends of the people. I would like to suggest to you, and they're not really friends of the law. And of course, we have thrown at us a great deal. The rule of law, the rule of law, the rule of law. The Republicans are as lawless as Democrats. They have their own particular formulations of lawlessness, and we have the jury to say no. And our system here in Tennessee and in the United States represents and is modeled on and borrows exceedingly from Christendom, from the ideas in Christianity, which bring about divided powers, which bring about written constitutions, which bring to us the whole jury system. The jury system comes out of the old Hebrew Republic, and the ideas of counties come from there. Sheriffs come from there, and the idea that local solutions are offered for local problems. Right? You don't have national solutions when you have a local problem at all. You don't do that. There's no national solution for gang violence in Chattanooga. There has to be a local solution, and often these solutions are not state oriented. Right? They come from individuals like Chris Roll and his wife Beverly, who were here yesterday and talking with us about their bus stop feeding program. Private solutions are where many problems are solved, and the state, especially in Nashville or in Washington, cannot presume to solve them. Well, what does this have to do with jury nullification? Well, jury nullification is in the context of this larger struggle. You see what I'm saying? There's larger struggle between the one and the many, which is a philosophical and religious problem that Christianity truly addresses. But which here in the streets, right here in Hickson and in Ooltewah, on Main Street in Chattanooga, over in Tiftonia, as it used to be called, over up on Lookout Mountain and Signal Mountain, and in the industrial district, this context often is forgotten, and yet that is the context of this whole question of, can the people say no? Can the many put up their hand and say, no, we say stop? And that's why when the jury call comes in that letter to you from Hamilton County government, the court system, you should be glad to say yes. You should say, yes, I'm going to say no to any prosecution that is a persecution, and I'm going to judge the law, not just the facts of the case, as the judge will pretend to tell me in his instructions. I judge the law itself, and it really has to be that way. Even though judges' instructions can be honored, you can honor the judge's instructions to judge just the facts. You can honor what he says, right? You cannot disobey him, or you can avoid disobeying him, and still vote your conscience. And that's what every juror has to do, is vote his conscience on the accusation, the criminal accusation against some hapless businessman or some person who is accused of assaulting a police officer, right? And all that person did was raise up his hand. As he was being punched, his hand flew back and hit the officer on the side of the head, right? And here we have now he's a defendant. He's a man whose bruises, by the time of the trial, his bruises have healed on his face, and his broken shoulder has mended, and now he's on trial for assaulting a police officer. Well, there was no video in that case that you're able to look at, but you can guess pretty well that the man who was savaged by the officer is probably not guilty. Caller, what's on your mind?
Great subject, David. Can I share my view with you on this?
Go ahead.
This is probably the most important thing you can do as an individual, as a citizen, as a free man, is sit on that jury, because the founders wanted it that way, because they feared tyranny from all levels of government. And with this, it's not just about, well, maybe you were charged with resisting arrest. They cannot get a conviction, they being the individuals elected and are hired to oversee and perpetuate the growth of the fascist Marxist socialist communist welfare state, the Internal Revenue Service in Montana, for willful failure, because the people were informed and they were finding individuals not guilty for willful failure to file income tax returns, because there was no law that the IRS presented compelling anyone to file. They would just charge you with not filing. So the jury said, no, we're not stupid, not guilty, even though the facts supported that one did not file. That's the power of the individual, one person, understanding a little bit of the law and wanting justice, because justice is more, and truth is more important than a man-made statute. And I recommend for everyone to read a little pamphlet, a little book called The Law by Hendrik Bastiat.
You mean Frederick Bastiat, Frederick.
But I mean, Frederick Bastiat, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's Bastiat is Bastiat, Frenchman.
Yeah, I've had several, and every time I lend them out, they never come back. But that is
yeah. You have them not to lend; you have them to give. It's a great book. All right, so caller, get to your point. What the point is that jury duty is perhaps the most important defense of local economy and local justice that my listener can think about.
If you try to get out of jury duty just because you don't want to go, I could see that if you're a single mom or this or that. But if you just don't want to go, then really you should really just leave the country, because that is your individual, God-given responsibility. That means you don't care about anybody but yourself, because that poor sap up there could be charged with a non-crime. Let me give you a silly example, but this
make it quick.
This is the power. This is the power of the state. Let's assume the legislature says today green means stop and red means go. They just decide to do that for a day as an experiment, and you go through a green light and are charged with a crime. I know you won't have a chance for a jury trial because you're outside the Constitution. But let's assume you then hit someone and are charged with vehicle homicide or vehicular homicide. Should one have a right to sit there and not only judge the law, but the facts? That, listen, no one told me that red means go and green means stop anymore. This is a matter of common law now. Can someone on the jury please have some common sense regarding this and find me not guilty?
Well, the argument is that if the law is arbitrarily changed, how can there be a crime? And the caller is expressing indignation that there's even a case and even a trial that covers such an arbitrary law for which someone is being accused. Well, this is David Tulis, and we're gonna talk with a state legislator who has a view very much, I think, like yours, my listener. And his name is Rick Womick, and we're going to talk about what do we do when officials don't honor the Constitution or honor the state Constitution or the federal Constitution. And the question is called, again, nullification. We have the whole idea of jury nullification. What about the state? Can the state be a partner in an act that is nullifying? Can the state itself take part in nullification, not in a single trial, of course, but in a conflict over its own laws, its own character, its own destiny? And that comes with the lug butt onslaught, the lug butt mudslide, if you will, that came against us from the Obergefell decision that deconstructed marriage, pretended to deconstruct marriage in all the states in which marriage was exclusively or is exclusively understood to be between one man and one woman. And the Governor Bill Haslam, a Republican, did not say no. He did not say no. He did not intervene. Neither did his. I think he did it with the deep analysis of his Attorney General, who made an argument for marriage in the Court of Appeals and before the High Court, but who thinks there is a doctrine called judicial supremacy, when the doctrine that really supersedes that is that of constitutional supremacy. The Constitution is supreme, not any branch of the national power, such as the judicial department, the High Court. And Mr. Slattery, Herbert Slattery III, advised the governor to just capitulate. And that's what happened on that day. It was a Tuesday. I've been saying it's been a Friday, but it was a Tuesday. Haslam just capitulated. And the whole gang in Nashville said, all right, all you 95 county court clerks in Tennessee, you need to say that marriage is now between not just Phil and Joanne, but between Annette and Sally and Jim and Joe. We're going to have these new forms now. We are helpless to stop them. We have no power to say no. And the idea of nullification is that you, my listener, do have tremendous power. And as we're going to find out, there is a remarkable power recognized that you have in Tennessee statute, and it's called the relator statute. Do you know that 10 people in our state can impeach the governor? 10 citizens under the relator statute can impeach the governor and hold him for trial. Think about it.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. My guest this week was the former U.S. ambassador to Russia and special assistant to President Obama, Mr. Michael McFaul. He'll be here to separate fact from fiction when it comes to Putin's aspirations for Russia. Don't miss Ambassador Michael McFaul this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on WSDT AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
When my brother and I opened our first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the southern state. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingraham, David Tulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. 5 members of the same family arrested on terror charges in the UK.
2 adults and 3 teenage girls arrested in London. Reports here say the suspects are 2 parents and their children. They're accused of possessing information linked to terrorism. One of the girls was also arrested last month on suspicion of preparation for terrorism.
Fox Radio Simon Owen, AP reporting meanwhile of another possible image online from terrorists. Photo released today purporting to show the Islamic State affiliate in Egypt has beheaded a Croatian hostage. Injuries reported after a U.S. Army chopper had a hard landing on a ship off Japan.
Earlier, Japan's Coast Guard joined the search for survivors in the ocean off Okinawa. The U.S. military said 6 injured people were taken to a naval hospital at Camp Foster.
Fox Radio's Alistair Wanklin. Fox News. We report. You decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
This is David Tulis. If you have a desire to get into your own business but don't have your own business plan, as I have one here for our radio station, AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, then contact Bruce Krebs, who runs Entrepreneur Source. He will get you into a franchise, the franchise model of business. His number is 875-5621. That's 875-5621. This is David Tulis. We're talking with Rick Womick on the phone. He is a state legislator who's been trying. He's the only legislator in the General Assembly that I'm aware of who understands the issues correctly regarding the power of the Constitution and the role of the oath of office to make the Tennessee Constitution, especially on its provisions of marriage, live daily. But that life was snuffed out by a kind of artifice by Governor Haslam, who conceded, with the aid of Herbert Slattery III, the Attorney General. They conceded that no, Tennessee doesn't have a marriage definition, and no, Tennessee cannot have a marriage definition any longer. What it must do is agree with the Obergefell opinion out of the High Court that said Jim Joe unions are a constitutional right. And Rick Womick is 57. He's a pilot. He's a state representative from Rutherford County, which is in the Murfreesboro area between Chattanooga and Nashville. And he's a former U.S. Air Force pilot, flew F-15s, and he's the father of 4 grown children. Rick, welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you, David?
Well, I'm fine, thank you. We want to hear more about your thinking regarding this whole topic of nullification. Tell my listener what nullification does, particularly as you're working on that issue in the General Assembly and the pro-gay ruling against marriage.
Okay, well, first of all, let's just define nullification. Nullification really is the action by the state of Tennessee, or any state for that matter, to prevent the operation or the enforcement within its borders of laws written by Congress of the United States, or in our case, an opinion from a Supreme Court ruling of 5 justices, from having it enforced here in the state of Tennessee. And that's exactly what nullification is. And so in this situation, it would be legislation that would have to pass the House and the Senate that said we will not honor and we will ignore. It has no effect, just like the Constitution says. It will be void and unenforceable in Tennessee. And that's exactly what a nullification bill would be.
Well, it
would be specific to that opinion given down by those 5 justices.
Well, Rick Womick, isn't it asking a bit much of the legislature to have to do this? Is nullification not really something that should come from the executive branch? The governor is the chief military man of our state. The chief, he is the one who executes the law. Should that not be his duty and his obligation to defend marriage in Tennessee?
Oh, absolutely. It's his obligation, David, to uphold the state constitution. And his oath is also to the U.S. Constitution. We all swear in as legislators, and the governor. We take an oath to the state constitution to uphold it, and the U.S. Constitution. And as you know, the 4 dissenting justices said this case is not in the U.S. Constitution. They didn't even have the authority to hear the case because it's not in the Constitution, and that the 9th and 10th Amendment were such a right is to be left to the states and the people thereof to decide. And so the governor, once again, has shirked his responsibility to uphold the Constitution and state law, and has decided to listen instead to the opinion of 5 justices. And you and I talked about this. They have the authority, first of all, if they're allowed to hear the case, the only authority the court has is to declare a law as constitutional or unconstitutional. The case before them is marriage between one man and one woman in Tennessee constitutional? They didn't rule on that. They decided to say, well, we're going to change your law to make it constitutional in our view, and you have to allow same-sex marriage. They don't have that power. All they have the power to do is say it's constitutional and unconstitutional, and then give an opinion why they think it's constitutional or unconstitutional. And that's where a lot of us are coming down on and saying, okay, well, then nullification is, well, we're going to nullify is an opinion. It's not even I told the clerks, you're not in violation of any federal law. The law of the land is only written by Congress or legislatures, state legislatures, not by the courts. They cannot legislate from the bench. So you're not in violation of any law. What you're in violation of right now is the state constitution that you took an oath to and state law.
Well, you sent that missive, Representative Rick Womick, to 95 clerks in the county, including to Bill Knowles, the county here in Chattanooga of Hamilton County. And to a man, or should I say to a woman, or to a person, they have all capitulated to this opinion, effectively violating their oaths of office. Is that what's in view here? They took an oath of office to uphold the Constitution before God. God is the guarantor. And now they've all turned their back on him, I suppose, and on what they swore to do.
Well, that's exactly right. And they're listening to the legal advice of Herbert Slatery and his threats of discriminatory lawsuits against them, and shirking their oath to not only what they made to the people in their county, but also, like I said, to the state constitution and state law. And here's the sad part. We're only talking about 2% of the population, of the entire population in the United States, that are wanting to get married the same sex. So we're capitulating this whole issue to 2% or less. And I'll tell you right now, from the feedback that I've been getting from the emails, and even including the radical lobbyists from the same-sex group, my emails and my mail is coming in right at 20 to 1, 20 to 2, in favor of marriage, upholding our state constitution and upholding traditional marriage. So the vast majority of people, they may not come out and say it, but the silent majority is they do not want this to change. And I think and I'll just throw this in there, David, I think you're seeing this revolt and this excitement among those of us who are fed up with Republicans as well as Democrats, who at election time tell us what they are going to do, and they show up in Nashville or show up to Washington, D.C., they don't do squat. And you see that in the Donald Trump movement. I mean, he's speaking what everybody wants to hear, and I think he's a man that may just go ahead and do exactly what he says. He's not a politician. He's not bought and purchased.
Well, all right. So
with Nashville, so many of our politicians, particularly our leadership, it's all about the money and all about the power, and forget what the people want.
Right. I think Governor Haslam, of course, is our state establishment. He's a Republican. And the thing that I'm concerned about is the state of the souls of these men and women who are practicing Christians. Governor Haslam is a practicing Christian. He's a Presbyterian elder, and here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, Bill Knowles is a Baptist. He's a member of the Church of God. He's a practicing Christian, and yet they've both said, "Well, God is going to absolve me of my oath to Him to uphold the Tennessee and the federal constitutions. I don't have to do that. This opinion means that I'm free from my commitment." But that's why people take oaths in the first place, Rick Womick. They take oaths because they know at some point there'll be a temptation to not honor the Constitution. What greater temptation would there be than a high court opinion? It seems to me that they're really offending God, and I think they're going to have to make some compensation to Him or deal with Him somehow, because He is the enforcer of their promise to defend my listener and marriage in our state.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, and you will know them by their fruits. And that's number one. Number two, and here's where people get confused with religion and politics. You hear all the separation of church and state. There's nothing in the Constitution about separation of church and state. You can be a Christian and be an office holder. You can be Jewish and be an office holder, and you can still profess your faith. That's guaranteed in the First Amendment. But where Christ comes in and talks about how we are to act relative to that, first thing is when he was asked about the coin, who does this belong to? And he said, well, whose name's on it? Whose picture's on it? If it belongs to Caesar, then render to Caesar what is Caesar's. But he also said in John 7:24 that we are to judge, not condemn, but we are to judge in righteous judgment, meaning any issue that comes up that is contained within the Word of God, then we are to obey that over government. And this is a situation where this is a righteous judgment, where homosexuality, as Christians, is fornication. It is a sin, and we are not to participate. And therefore, if you're going to judge in righteous judgment, in this case, you must do what God's word says.
Right.
And for those county clerks, they're going to have to wrestle with that, or they're going to have to answer for it one day.
Well, I think
stand before the Lord.
Rick Womick, I think that many of these people who are practicing Christians, they take their courage as compliant. They say that complying is my act of courage. Your argument is, of course, is that their courage needs to be in resisting and in nullifying. Well, you're proposing
we are to fight back, David, if it is contrary to God's word.
Right. And
if we are. What's the next bill? What's the next thing that this court's going to come down and say? You must worship the almighty dollar and not worship God. Are these courts going to do that? I mean, you can go anything contrary to God's word that the state tells you must do. You are held accountable not to do it.
Right.
If it's something that doesn't deal with the state, if it deals with driving down the highway at a certain speed, you are to obey the laws of the state, because that's not contained in God's word. But if it's contained in God's word, you are to ignore what the state tells you to do and listen and follow God's word.
Well, talk about the
whole.
This
is where we're at with marriage.
Rick Womick, talk about the process of impeachment as you envision it. I have an alternative argument that is discussing that would be in the context of the relator statute, in which 10 citizens of the state can impeach any official. They have to agree to it, and the Attorney General in the provision that I'll be writing about today, he has to help. Now, your idea is to have members of the legislature.
Yeah, and I've heard that. But
go ahead.
What's going to override is the Constitution. The Constitution is going to override state law or any statutes. So the Constitution says the governor can be impeached by a majority vote in the House. Again, remember, impeachment is not removal from office. Impeachment means to accuse. So let's just take it, for example, let's say that the House does impeach the governor. Well, then the next step is it goes to the full Senate, where the Senate will treat it as a court case, and they will vote on a conviction.
Okay, so that's what you're pursuing.
If the Senate votes in favor of a conviction, then the governor will be removed from office. So impeachment and conviction it's a two-step process to get rid of the governor. It's just not, you can impeach him. So that process is going to be overridden by the Constitution over any state law or any statute.
Well, this provision of state law is about removal of officers, and it says the petition or complaint shall be in the name of the state. In other words, my listener and 9 other people represent the state's interest, and then they file upon the relation of the Attorney General and reporter, or the district attorney of the state, or the county attorney in the case of a county, or the city attorney in the case of a city case. And in all cases, it's filed without concurrence of any such officers upon the relation of 10 or more citizens or freeholders of the state. And what they're doing is they're suing to have an officer removed. And that can be, the statute does not say to whom it may be aimed or upon whom it may be aimed. It's aimed at any state officer on the relation of 10 people, that there is something unlawful, disobedience of oath, or something criminal, or something in the way of malfeasance that officer is guilty of. And so they get a trial. The 10 relators get a trial, and the attorney, either the state's attorney or county attorney or a city attorney, is required to help them. The statute says that the Attorney General and reporter has a duty upon the request of these citizens to aid and assist in the prosecution of such proceedings against the state officers, and so on down the chain of corporate government. So you're trying.
What you've got, though, David, is you have to look at, again. You're here comes the word politics. Let's just take that for example. Let's say you want to impeach a representative. Well, those 10 people are going to have to appeal to the Attorney General, and
no, they don't have to appeal. Well, they don't. There's no doubt that they have the authority to move forward, and the duty is of the Attorney General to help them. It's not that the Attorney General can stop them. He doesn't get permission for this process. He has to help them. That's his duty to do so, or the county attorney in that case.
He determines, his opinion is, if he determines that this legislator didn't do anything wrong, that's where it stops.
Well, then same
thing in the county. Same thing with the counties. If you have a county mayor that you're trying to get rid of, and you take it to the district attorney in that county, and that district attorney sees nothing criminal committed by that county mayor, then it's going to go no further.
Just read the statute. There's no, this is for the help. We're talking here about the help that these 10 citizens can expect from these attorneys. If they don't get the help, then they have to make their own case. They perhaps have to hire their own counsel. There's nothing in the statute that gives the authority of the Attorney General or the county attorney in the case of, let's say, Bill Knowles, to stop this process. It is a process of impeachment. It's really not impeachment; it's removal of office, and it's tried in the local court.
It's completely different. It's not impeachment.
No,
it's not. It's not. Because impeachment, again, you're talking. It's a two-step process from impeachment to conviction. So, my question to you is then: okay, you have 10 individuals that do such a thing. How do you get that into the courtroom?
Well, it's through the statute.
It is such an offense that this person needs to go to court.
Well, it seems to me, Rick Womick, what's happened is that this provision lets there be a kind of revolution built into the law where the people, the Democratic impulse in all of my listener and people no doubt in your district in Rutherford County, they get together and say, we are going to act against, let's say, our state senator, and they can do it. It's a way of throwing out someone who's hated or despised or someone who's offended the public sentiment in that, either in that state or that county or the city. And it's a thing that's in the statute. It's allowable. It doesn't limit what these people can do. They have to relate. There is one hitch, though, and that is if they lose, they are responsible for the defendant's legal expenses. But that's less of a threat now because we have crowdfunding. And if there's let's say a $200,000 legal bill that Herbert Slattery is going to impose upon the members of the committee, they can raise the money by petitioning, by having fundraisers. Clearly, they would not be able to afford it themselves, but it is something that this is a parallel authority that the people have. You, Rick Womick, in the state legislature have that authority by impeachment, but you have to round up votes. What are the prospect of rounding up votes, Rick Womick, in the Tennessee General Assembly for an impeachment? What are you hearing?
I'm hearing everybody talking about it. I shouldn't say everybody. I'm hearing a large number, and it's not a majority of the House. I'm hearing a large number of people throwing the word impeachment around. If you want to ask me what's realistic, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're not going to have Republicans turning on this governor because they know this governor has a lot of money. He comes from a billionaire family. He's already proven in the last election he will take that money and use it in PACs to run against his fellow Republicans. You know, he tried to find 2 people last time to run against me, and they both turned him down. And then he found people run against 7 other Republicans in the House and the Senate in the last primary. So if he doesn't like you, he will find somebody to run against you. That's why I say, you know, he's not a Republican. He is. You don't have your own Republican governor seeking people to run against you because you don't agree with him 100% of the time. And that's what we have in this governor. So he's certainly not a Republican when it comes to expanding Obamacare. He's not a Republican when it comes to upholding same-sex marriage. He's not a Republican when it comes to supporting his fellow Republicans. It's either do as I say or I'll come after you. And that's where a lot of us are fed up. But so many of my fellow legislators are scared of him. And they'll stand up behind the scenes, but they won't come out front. And I don't blame them. I understand where they're coming from. They don't want to have to deal with any kind of competition or additional competition during a primary. So, you know, that's just where I stand. And I had disagreements with the governor. I've voted with him probably on over 85% of the issues. But Common Core, that's the other big one. That is Obama's education program, the complete dumbing down of our students, and national takeover of education by the federal government. And he is fully in support of that. He's been pushing it, and he's relentless.
So
that's where he and I have butted heads on it for the last 2 years.
Now, Rick Womick, your conception of Tennessee as a state, as an independent nation, as a state, is that it's not merely a department of the national government. It's not merely a department, and therefore has to have its own, you might say, its own levels of testosterone. It can be manly. It can be brusque. It can say, no, we are not going to do that. We are Tennesseans. We are the volunteer state, and we're not volunteering to be a pro-poofter, an anti-marriage state. We're not going to be that. But Governor Haslam's conception is different. He really thinks that Tennessee is just kind of a functionary of the national power.
Governor Haslam is a federalist, just like Alexander Hamilton. I compare myself more to Thomas Jefferson, where I am a state sovereignist. I believe in the sovereignty of each and every state with a federal government who is supposed to follow verbatim the Constitution and stay within its powers that are given to it by the Constitution. That's where we have a conflict right now, is the federal government is not staying within the powers of the Constitution. They're ignoring it, and they're forcing their power upon each and every state. And the way they do it is through the almighty dollar. Oh, we're going to threaten to take money away from you if you don't do what we tell you to do. And this is where, Governor Haslam and others, we don't want to lose that precious federal dollar, so we got to do exactly what we're told. And I'm like, no, we don't.
So what you're really, you're talking
all the money. We're going to tell them what we're going to do. And if they want to come in here and try to invade a sovereign state with a federal force, then it's time to fight back. That's not going to happen.
You use the word.
You've got Washington State and Colorado and California selling illegal drugs, marijuana, growing it and selling it against federal law. You've got over 250 sanctuary cities in direct violation of federal immigration laws. Nothing's being done. The federal government has no power to enforce their edicts upon these states, or even federal laws, as obvious in those examples.
So those are encouraging developments.
They're not going to. Pardon me?
Those are encouraging developments. These forms of resistance against national power.
Yeah, and it's time to stand up for state sovereignty, and time to stand up. If it's not in the U.S. Constitution, the federal government doesn't have the power. And if the states will stand up and say, you don't have that power, and stand up collectively, even 10 or 15 states stand up and go, no, we're not doing that because you do not have that power. We are in recognition of the 9th and 10th Amendments. And here's what people don't understand. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution came about because the founders had to come up with an agreement on the whole Constitution. The first 8 amendments are really very, very important rights to them that they wanted to see put in writing. The 9th Amendment and the 10th were to be any future, and they knew this, there's going to be other rights that the country is going to consider very important. And they felt that the 9th Amendment, putting the 9th Amendment in there, would say, okay, any other future rights that the people feel are important, it will belong to the states, and then the 10th Amendment and the people thereof to decide what those rights are and to control it with legislation. So anything that's not in the Constitution throughout the first 8 amendments is to be left to the people and the states. That's where we're at. And so we either uphold them. We've been losing that since the Civil War.
Well, Rick Womick, I want to thank you for joining my listener and me here on the David Tulis show. This is David Tulis. And Rick Womick, it seems to me that we don't have, you mentioned conflict between the states and the federal government. The problem, I think, is that there's not enough conflict. There needs to be a conflict. There needs to be a clashing of swords, if you will, a clashing of wills. Thanks for joining my listener and me, Rick Womick.
David, have a good day.
Thanks. Rick Womick is a representative from Rutherford County, the Murfreesboro area, and he is talking with us about the whole ideas of nullification. We mentioned jury nullification, but now here there's a question of can and should Tennessee nullify this this opinion, which has allowed the poofter mudslide, if you will, to wash across our state and effectively to deconstruct marriage. What I think is interesting is there's a lack of conflict. There's not a resistance. There's simply compliance. There's a acquiescence, and there's kind of an approval even of gay theory in law and culture by acquiescence. Is acquiescence right? And what about your minister? You have a friend. You don't have a minister, but your friend does. Your Christian friend has a minister. What about in his church? Does that minister still think we have to get marriage licenses to marry? I wonder. There's acquiescence all over, and it's a kind of spiritual laxness, a lapse of vigor, a loss of testosterone, perhaps. Well, this is David Tulis. I've got some things I want you to hear.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services.
Here you
The
are,
sky
working to
is
keep
our
your
limit.
customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at EJ Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brandon Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's EJ Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If you have the DTs, shake, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life. Mention Hot News Talk Radio and get 10% off.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. My guest this week was the former U.S. Ambassador to Russia and Special Assistant to President Obama, Mr. Michael McFaul. He'll be here to separate fact from fiction when it comes to Putin's aspirations for Russia. Don't miss Ambassador Michael McFaul this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on WSDT AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky
If the
is our limit.
South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Soddy Daisy, Chattanooga. CBS News, I'm Frank Sedapani. A new poll shows that one of her challengers has overtaken Hillary Clinton in a primary state she was expected to win going away. CBS's Stephen Portnoy is live with the latest.
This Boston Herald survey from Franklin Pierce University puts Bernie Sanders ahead in New Hampshire by 7 points, leading Hillary Clinton 44 to 37%. Only about a third of those polled said they are enthusiastic about her run. Political analyst Greg Valliere calls this a crisis for the Clinton campaign.
If her polling numbers continue to slide, I think soon, with Biden to get into
10% support in this New Hampshire poll. Frank.
Hillary Clinton has given the FBI a server and a thumb drive with her State Department emails, but that's not likely to silence her critics anytime soon.
This is an issue that is going to continue to hang over her campaign for months to come, both because the FBI is still looking into this and because she's going to have to testify before Congress about her emails and about her handling of the Benghazi, Libya attacks.
CBS News correspondent Nancy Cordes. A state of emergency in Ferguson, Missouri could be lifted as early as today. KMOX reporter Brett Bloom tells us protesters who took to the streets last night were outnumbered by the police.
When there was an attempt to block traffic, the police quickly moved in and shut that down. A couple of incidents where a couple of rocks were thrown and that died down quickly.
The state of emergency has been in force since gunfire marred a rally on Sunday night. Dannemora prison inmates claimed they were beaten, choked, and otherwise abused by guards desperate for information in the days after two convicted killers escaped. They also told New York Times reporter Michael Schwartz that guards confiscated personal items.
They either lost their property or the property was taken, thrown out, or destroyed. This included legal papers, diaries, personal writings by the inmates, wedding rings.
The EPA says the water quality around the site of a toxic waste spill in Colorado is improving, but CBS's Maria Villarreal tells us they still haven't declared an all clear.
Right now, as the water is being tested, officials want to hold off. They want to make sure to keep their residents safe. So bathing, washing clothes, feeding livestock, even drinking the water from private wells is not advised.
A crew working for the EPA accidentally unleashed a cascade of arsenic and other dangerous chemicals into the Animas and San Juan rivers. A wildfire that's forced some families out of homes in Northern California for the second time in 2 weeks has spread out over 22 square miles. Cal Fire spokesman Daniel Berlin.
The dry conditions that have fueled many of the wildfires here in California have allowed this fire to grow very rapidly.
The fire burning in the rugged hills 100 miles north of San Francisco is only 5% contained. The currency devaluation in China that could price American companies out of overseas markets is pushing Wall Street prices lower for a second day. In early trading, the Dow Industrials are down 190 points. This is CBS News.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? I'm Jim O'Connor, independent life insurance agent specializing in term life insurance. There's been a price war between the major life insurance companies. If you've had your term life policy more than 2 years, you may be paying too much. For example, a male age 45 non-tobacco user issued preferred best, $1 million of coverage is only $56 a month guaranteed level for 10 years. Or a male age 50 non-tobacco user issued preferred best, $500,000 of coverage is only $91 a month guaranteed level for 20 years. The life insurance industry is going through exciting changes. Make sure you're not paying too much for your term insurance. For new or replacement term life insurance, call for a free quote. 800-799-0903. That's 800-799-0903. Don't pay too much for your term insurance. Call 800-799-0903 or visit my website at term22.com. That's term22.com. Rates based on standard underwriting and may vary by state.
Some former top military men have taken a stand on the nuclear weapons deal with Iran. CBS's Vicki Barker has the story.
In an open letter, 36 retired generals and admirals urge Congress to back the deal, which they insist will be more effective than any U.S. military action could be. They say the U.S. would be able to monitor the Iranians and know if they tried to cheat. But if the deal's rejected, they say the Iranians could have a nuclear weapon within a year. Not clear if that will win over the Republican lawmakers and presidential candidates who almost unanimously oppose the deal. Vicki Barker, CBS News.
The lawsuit basketball great Michael Jordan filed against a now-defunct supermarket chain is about to get underway in Chicago. Jordan claims Dominic's Finer Foods hurt the value of his brand by running a promotion that used his name without permission. Lawyers are scheduled to deliver opening statements about an hour from now. Frank Sedapani, CBS News.
This is an
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
TV3 is reporting that a supply chain company called Ryder, R-Y-D-E-R, is expanding operations and setting up shop in Maury County in Spring Hill, Tennessee. There'll be about 600 jobs that will come with that warehousing operation. that also includes transportation, kiting or kitting, and assembly operations. The company's based in Miami and will invest, as the story on TV3's website says, about $16 million to be near the General Motors Spring Hill plant. This is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving me a couple minutes of your time this morning. We are members of Trade Bank of Chattanooga. You can find out more about Trade Bank, which is a kind of a swapping society using a debit card at 877-2202. That's 877-2202. And you will be taking part in the smarter way to barter and to improve your cash flow. I want to mention also Eric Pelton, EJ Pelton, who is an accountant and tax preparer who runs ejpeltoncompany.com. It's ejpelton.com is the website. And he runs Eric EJ Pelton Company to help people, high finance people, high income people, and small businesses, even medium-sized businesses with their number problems. Call 622-3156. That's 622-3156. There is a Saudi Daisy branch of that outfit as well. And we are interested in hearing more about a $3 million lawsuit that's been filed by a defendant named Joshua Ferreira, by Clancy Covert and a colleague, Lee Ortwine. Clancy Covert runs a law office in Red Bank, and the story at WRCB TV's website is about what happened to Joshua Ferreira in Hamilton County. He was slammed about. The lawsuit names the deputy Jeremy Wright and 12 other unnamed officers. They're called John Does, who are involved in this claim of brutalization. The lawsuit says that Ferreira was crying out in pain, quoting the suit now, and pleading with the deputies that he was in extreme pain, but excessive force continued. The story goes on to say that once outside the cell, Ferreira claims the deputies jumped on his head with the full weight of their bodies, leaving him bloody and unconscious. So that's why he only remembered one name of all the tags he saw as he was being thrown about. But deputies previously testified that they had to use whatever force necessary, including batons and tasers, to get what the story describes as a combative Ferreira into custody. Jim Hammond, the sheriff, according to TV3, called for an internal affairs investigation, and the suit was filed I think yesterday. There's a story by David Morton regarding cameras on police officers, which I think you should view with ambivalence. Their presence on the shoulders or chests of police officers have been shown to reduce violence by cops. But also they have, on the negative side, they are a new part of surveillance, a new interface of surveillance by the state and its agents, namely the cops, against members of the public, right? Because whenever you're stopped, whenever there's a confrontation or an interview, I view virtually any dealing with a police officer as a confrontation, though he may not intend it to be so. That's kind of how being a guarded, quiet person as I am, I view it as a confrontation. So every one of them is recorded, right? Everyone is recorded, and when the officer is done with his day, he docks his webcam or his camera, and the data is uploaded. So everything is uploaded. Everything is kept in the way of a record. David Morton has a kind of a summary of what's going on around the area in various municipal governments regarding these devices. Law enforcement agencies say cameras aid investigations and reduce unfounded complaints against officers. And Hedy Weinberg of the ACLU says the public is becoming aware of how important these cameras are. What hasn't been discussed is ensuring the rights of individuals to their privacy. Well, if you're having a confrontation with a cop, it's really not private at that point. It's in public, no doubt. But what if it isn't private? What if the officer demands access to your home and you, without thinking, let him in, right? So that camera is rolling the whole time. You have cameras going on in your house, which is private, but because you've consented, the camera rolls on, and everything that happens after that, passing the threshold, his boot passes the threshold, is part of a record, right? It may be a public record at some point. And the Chattanooga Police Department, according to David's graphic, he has a kind of a chart in his article at Nooga.com, says that there are 486 sworn personnel. The launch date for cameras is to be announced, and the same with Hamilton County with 325 sworn officers. The smaller towns around us already have picked out cameras, including the L3 body vision. The launch was a couple months ago. At East Ridge, Collegedale, with 23 staffers, has the Digital Ally First View that has already been out, and Signal Mountain has the Digital Ally. The launch date is not clear. Fred Fletcher says this is the community concept and a new practice. It's probably going to need new funding. Well, I think that while it probably makes your job as a police officer more difficult, and if you are one of those officers who's testy and demanding and always using your ordering voice and never talking in a normal voice, well, there may be signs as you are supervised that you might want to tone down a little bit and be a little bit more gracious to innocent members of the traveling or pedestrianing or dwelling public, right? The public whom you encounter are in any of those three circumstances. But if you're a good police officer, why are you constantly being monitored by your boss, which is certainly something you face if you are every encounter with the civilian population is recorded. East Ridge requires officers to tell the victim, if you will, that he's being recorded. Officers manually activate the devices to record all law enforcement contacts and are expected, David Morton reports, to notify citizens that they're being recorded. And that's according to a policy document that for which he provides a link. Collegedale says, we started, quoting Chief Brian Hickman, we started using the body-worn cameras because many of our contacts are made in the field and the in-car cameras cannot capture these interactions. Well, I'm thinking that these are not necessarily good things, and they are part of the surveillance state. They are part of the continuing, you might say, the continuing warfare of modern nation states against their own people. Police departments are part of the nation state concept, according to the histories that I've looked at that touch on the rise of the modern nation. The idea of the nation is very new. It's about 300 years old at the most. And one book that really goes into that is Martin Van Creveld, who's a very famous writer, a very great military strategist, a historian, kind of academic figure. And his book is called The Rise and Decline of the State. And so police departments are part of that. They are part of the means that the state uses to control, regulate, intimidate, and tax the people, the people who fund its operations, and who are they're made constantly to be afraid of it and afraid of offending it, and yet still they're supposed to have love for it and care for it. And that's why your modern state is usually about warfare. You'll find, with maybe one or two exceptions, that Republican candidates, Ted Cruz, are very much for the modern state because they believe in war. They believe in making war, and are especially the Republican Party, like the Democrats, not for peace, not for what we would favor as non-intervention. Non-intervention is what local economy is about. Local economy is about the voluntary society of the marketplace of entrepreneurs, families, churches, private associations, all serving each other, prospering each other, and doing so without there having to be compulsion, throwing the actors around and reordering the actors and telling them what to do and how to march and how to think. That's the free market. So we have a limited free market here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga. There are great limits upon it. The state, with its constant sentinels, is there, keeping people in order, telling them how to think. Think of public school, which we're at the beginnings of the new season of public education. If you are hungry, make sure you go out to eat at Delia's, the authentic Mexican restaurant in South Saudi Daisy. Maria Hernandez offers the freshest ingredients, all cooked to perfection. She has homemade tamales, crazy chicken. She has enchiladas with beef, chicken, and pork. She has quesadillas, all the things that your German neighbor would enjoy eating. Able to make selections from a very nice little menu with pictures. That's at Delia's. The special today is the taco salad, number 19 to get $1 off. Mention my name, David Tulis, or our radio station to say you heard about you on the radio, and that will keep me in good standing with Maria. So make sure you mention me to her, and let her know that she's not she's investing in herself by being my advertiser here on your station. We are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, and we're the station in which you report and the world decides. I cover local economy and the free markets. My name is David Tulis. My slogan, if I have one, is love your neighbor and buy local. And that's a great idea. I think in that concept are many blessings that if we understand how that system works, how local economy works, we are going to be much more confident of local people and much less confident of people who don't deserve it. And that would be the good folks in Nashville and Washington. And even among those people who are throwing arguments around saying, hey, put me at the top of that heap in Washington, even among them, I think we'll be more skeptical of their blandishments if we have a local economy perspective. Because in that perspective, the problems that we have are caused by national government and national economy. And guess what? The solutions are with people just like you, my listener. And part of the idea of local economy and the free market is that we can say no. We can in fact defend the innocent. And there's a story that moved a couple days ago that I didn't get to about a man in Denver who's being criminally charged for passing out literature near a court. He's on the sidewalk and he's passing out literature regarding an explosive topic, that being the power of the jury power, also called jury nullification. His name is Mark Iannicelli. He's 56 years old. He set up a booth with a sign that said juror info in front of the Lindsay Flanagan courthouse. And he's being charged by the district attorney, who says that he is interfering with the jury. And he says he was released on $5,000 personal recognizance bond, according to a story that moved July the 30th. And he is accused of 7 counts of jury tampering. Well, there are several free speech questions that come up in this discussion about this very well-meaning and innocent man. But the topic he really wants to talk about is one I think I want to mention to you first, and that in the order of things, right? And that is what you do when you are a juror. You should be glad to get the notice from Hamilton County or Bradley County if you're there to take part in a jury as a juror, right? On jury duty. It is a duty, and this is the duty I think that is a genuine defense of the marketplace. And yes, you are serving the county, you are serving the state, you are being sort of ordered to do something, but that is because the jury pool has to have fresh blood in it. It has to have fresh participants who are among the common people, right? It is the jury pool is made up of people just like you, and you are esteemed by our law. And the esteem for you is this: you are a common, ordinary person, and we have behind us, we have a man accused by the state, right? The holy state and his prosecutor, supposedly representing the people, but we know it doesn't represent the people anymore. And this man has a defense to make, and we want you to hear both the accuser, the state and its attorney, and we want you to hear his defense. Who's right? Can you find this man guilty and then he pays a fine or goes to prison or makes restitution? Or do you find that he's done nothing wrong? Well, the power of the jury is a tremendous power. And there was a ruling that came out in 2012 at the district level out of Manhattan. And the judge is Kimba Wood, whose name you may have heard before. And she said that no. This act of passing out literature, and in this case it was in Manhattan, is not jury tampering at all. It's not jury tampering, and it's not jury tampering because the man in the case she ruled upon, that of a professor named Julian Heiklin, was not aimed at influencing the jury on any particular case. It was that man, Mr. Heiklin, or Professor Heiklin, was simply talking about the power of the juror to acquit in the face of law and even in the face of facts. Now, you're saying, boy, David, you're proposing anarchy. You're saying that that there's no law. You're saying that the accused can be just freed by whim, by the people, that they can ignore a law that has been passed by the people's representatives and is now being imposed here in this case. They can just ignore that. Is that what you're saying? Well, yes, but I wouldn't put it quite that. I wouldn't put it quite that way. And Kimball Wood says that in her defense of she denied a trial. She said there cannot be a trial of this demonstrator passing out literature, and that's because Professor Heiklin supported jury nullification, the power of the jury, and she said that he can be accused of jury manipulation only if he is trying to get a jury to say something in a particular case. But just generalized handing out of literature, generalized talking about the power of the jury, cannot be wrong. The prosecutors declined to comment on the ruling, according to the New York Times. This is a couple years ago now. In a hearing last month, the prosecutor called Mr. Heiklin's advocacy a significant and important threat to our judicial system. Now, that is a quote I want to mention to you, because that's how the machine, right, the modern machine of the state, views you. If you think that you have the power to judge the law, well, then you are, quote, a significant and important threat to our judicial system. Well, don't forget, the judicial system is not any longer about justice, especially in federal jurisdiction. It's about the imposition of many laws that are unconstitutional upon the people, the enforcement of many, many edicts and rules and regulations upon the people that are not constitutional. And so if you believe in the power of the jury to say no, you are a threat, all right? This is how you are a threat to a significant and important threat to the machinery of the modern government. And that's why if you're called to jury duty, especially in federal jurisdiction, you should be very glad to get that notice and eager to take part, right? If you can get on a grand jury, a man like you, I'd say even better. So why don't you solicit a place on the grand jury if you are, let's say, retired and you have time on your hands? Grand jurors do a great job, though they too often reflect the interest of the state by too easily granting indictments and not easily enough issuing what are called no true bills, right? If there's no true bill, that means there's no indictment and there's no trial going to be held, because we, the people, determine that there is not sufficient warrant for it under the law, and that the man who's being evilly spoken of by the prosecutor or the prosecutor subordinate here in the grand jury, we're going to ignore what that man says. There's a professor in Knoxville at UT who is a significant force, I'd say, in the way of ideas for the marketplace and for the constitutional government. His name is Glenn Reynolds. He's a law professor. He has tenure, so he can say what he wants, right? And he says that jury nullification already takes place on the other side, effectively the same thing. And here's how that works. You, the juror, can say no to a prosecution by voting against the law, right? Your deliberations are in secret. They cannot be held. They cannot be questioned. And you just vote no against the law. Well, you're using your discretion, right? The prosecutor does the same thing. Figure out for a second who gets prosecuted. Well, prosecutors, Glenn Reynolds says in an essay at USA Today, he says that you do the same thing as prosecutor by what's called prosecutorial discretion, and that's not treated as an evil. That's treated as just part of the way the system operates. The prosecutor goes after whom he wants. And you, the juror, can do the same thing. You can go after whom you want, or you can free whom you want. So if there seems to be an unjust law or a form of malicious prosecution, of which we do know about here in Chattanooga, well, then you, the juror, can simply say, well, I believe in local economy. I believe injustice. And this is a prosecution filled with malice. And I'm very skeptical about the claims made by the state. You know, sometimes cases are pursued and the prosecutors throw the kitchen sink. They're called kitchen sink indictments, charging dozens or hundreds of crimes. And what they do is they bludgeon defendants into accepting a plea bargain rather than risking a trial. Very few cases go to trial, and more should. This is David Tulis.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. My guest this week was the former U.S. ambassador to Russia and special assistant to President Obama, Mr. Michael McFaul. He'll be here to separate fact from fiction when it comes to Putin's aspirations for Russia. Don't miss Ambassador Michael McFaul this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on WSDT AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
When my brother and I opened the first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducks. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingraham, David Tulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. The head of the EPA heads to Colorado for a first-hand look at a mine spill disaster.
The Gold King mine spill, accidentally unleashed by EPA workers, poured 3 million gallons of mine waste into the Animas River and has sparked an emergency declaration in 2 states. The 100-mile plume has traveled through parts of Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers. As many as 100 commercial truck drivers may have gotten their licenses through bribes, according to federal officials.
DMV worker Emma Clem and trucking school owner Kulwinder Singh have each pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit bribery and identity fraud. 2 other DMV workers and 2 other trucking school operators have been arrested on similar charges.
Fox Radio's Pat O'Neill and the second man charged in the theft of $150,000 in cash mistakenly left behind by ATM workers in New Jersey last month, now in custody. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
Charles Hugh Smith is one of my favorite writers, and the other day he posted an essay called "Here's the Next Crisis," quote, "Nobody saw coming." And he says, how is it possible that we can define or declare that there is such an economic crisis, a meltdown ahead? He has 3 charts. One of them shows the rise in state and local government debt. It's a 150% increase since the year 2000 in the past 15 years. And then another that shows state and local government current tax receipts up 75% since 2000. And expenditures have risen, he says, well, the other is total expenditures up 82% since the same year in the past 15 years. And then there's a 4th chart about real median household income, which has declined 8.5% since 2000. So we have a growing pressure between, you might say, national economy and local economy. Local economy in that context referring strictly to the private economy that would involve you, not government bonds, government programs, government bailouts, and the like. Among the prospects, he says that the bond market may choke if state and local governments try to borrow their way to prosperity as they did in the 2000s, and if state and local taxes keep soaring while wages stagnate and household income declines, households will have less cash to spend on consumption. And of course, we know that when in the old saying is that if you have consumers spending less, then that is the same as recession. This sets up, he says, an unvirtuous cycle. State and local governments will have to raise taxes to maintain their higher spending. Higher taxes reduce household income, or household spending, which reduces income and sales tax revenues. In response, state and locals raise taxes. Again, this further suppresses disposable income and consumption. In other words, raising taxes offers diminishing returns. And the crisis coming has several forms, several triggers, if you will. And they seem to connect with the fact that we don't have a lawful currency, a lawful constitutional medium of exchange that is a store of value and is not really a very faithful money of account, and is being supplanted, we hope, over time by older forms of wealth and wealth references, which would be gold and silver or lawful coin and currency, or even new forms. There's a story that moved not long ago, actually on the 9th of August in the New York Times about artisanal cash that is paper money that has a local flavor and a local interest. And there's a reference to that, and also the Mises Institute that summarizes the article, and the headline there is "Cash is making a comeback as people print their own." And we here in Chattanooga have Trade Bank, and we have, it's kind of a parallel cash economy to the national economy through Federal Reserve notes here in Chattanooga. These, of course, are Trade Bank dollars. They're digital, and they're accounted for on computer. We use a card that lets us buy and sell through Trade Bank in Chattanooga. So it is a part of the barter economy, but then it really all of the economy is barter, and we use money, we use currency as the medium of exchange, the thing that comes between us and the buyer, or us and the seller, and through this medium, we affect our desires. We bring about our desires through this medium, right? That's why the word medium is really very interesting. If you're going to buy something from me, we don't have to trade, let's say, commercial time, let's say commercials for dental care. If you're a dentist, I don't need dental care. That's not a transaction that will happen because we don't have the coincidence of needs. But through money, right? Through dollars, let's say, we can convert our interest into that, and that is the medium between us. It is the thing between us that enables you and me, the client relationship, to have a transaction with you. So can we have alternatives to that? Well, there's Bitcoin. There is lawful coin and currency, which would be, there's no lawful currency in our country now, but there's lawful coin, which I would call 90% circulated dimes, quarters, and halves. And then there are other forms as well, as mentioned in the Mises.org story. And probably the biggest, the most effective one is in the United States is Berkshires. And these circulate in the area of Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And that's what the New York Times says is probably the most noteworthy of all of the ones that it makes reference to. It first issued in 2006. Berkshire notes were supported by research and development funding from the Schumacher Center for a New Economics. There are about $1 million worth of these notes circulated or printed, and there are $138,000 worth in circulation. And the problem, though, is that while these are kind of local-centric ideas, they serve people in a local area, they don't really answer the problem, you might say the moral and philosophical problem that you have with a representational currency, and that is, what does it represent? And what does a Berkshire mean? What kind of claim does it give me if I have it? If I have it and I extend it to you to buy something, what does it buy me, and what is the value? What is the value of that note, and does that value go down? Does its value slide as someone else makes a profit off of it by inflation, right? Inflation is simply the creation of more units of a currency. And we have in our day a mass inflation. It's not registering really at your cash register. It is in some respects, but it should be really much more. And you have to remember that you can be enduring a raging inflation and have fairly stable prices. And the reason that you have fairly stable prices is that inflation makes up the difference between the real value of those goods, which is going down, but you're paying always more or less the same amount, maybe 2% higher per year. And the inflation is a mask for the cheapening value of goods in real terms, right? In real buying terms. So we could be having, and I think we do, have going on today here around Chattanooga and Hamilton County, a mass inflation. Things should be going down in value. Things should be in price. Prices should be dropping across the board, but they're not, and that's because of inflation. We live under an artificial economy, under what's called interest rate suppression, or ZIRP, zero interest rate policy. It's a decade old now, and we are the poorer for it. So we want to have local economy, and we want to have prosperity, and we want to have there's a story. Sometimes I come across things that don't quite exactly fit, but let me just mention there's a story at Chattanooga.com about a website that has a kind of local economy flavor, and there are apparently 65 groups in Chattanooga already that are using Nextdoor, as it's called. The story at Chattanooga.com says that the police department is joining in a partnership with this free private social network for neighborhoods, quote, to build stronger communities and safer streets with the help of community members. So you notice that sentence assumes that safe streets come from police. They don't come from the people. Safe streets don't inhere in the people who live in neighborhoods. They come from the fact that there's a military occupation of men dressed in blue who are there to keep the peace. And without them, there would be mayhem in every neighborhood. The official said Nextdoor, quote, has already proven to be an essential and well-adopted tool for Chattanoogans. Cops apparently don't have access to the website. There's a limited access. The story says police department will not be able to access residents' websites, contact information, or content. I'm not quite sure what use the police have in this if they're blocked out. But it is an online portal for police departments to involve themselves in the neighborhood. And I'm wondering why the whole community policing theory seems to be developing this way. There needs to be, I would like to think, a reassessment of the whole policing concept. That we need to have, just as in the abortion field, there is a Center for Medical Progress run by David Tulis exposing the bloodletting by Planned Parenthood. We need to have a reassessment of the idea of police departments, and it could come through a nonprofit organization with the name possibly of the Safety Progress Foundation, right? And what you're doing is you're saying, do we really have safety by having police departments, or do police departments make everything less safe, or maybe in some general way less safe? If you had unarmed police, maybe that would be an important step toward having fewer killings and less abuse. And that is because police officers they're a kind of a military cult. They're people, their families are all very tight. They're a unique group. It is effectively us versus them. Them would be where you, my listener, are among the them. And it is a guild. It's kind of a cult even. And the law has been written after decades of police department lobbying and Fraternal Order of Police lobbying for the legislature and the Congress. There are many privileges that insulate this guild from the common law requirements of justice and equity. They have police departments have a sweeping extra legal power to intimidate and harass and record and shoot and tase people just like you. Well, I wanted to talk about something that's been kind of on my mind, and I'm going to kind of write a summary sometime today or maybe tomorrow on the Tennessee relator law. This hang on. This is David Tulis. You're on the air.
I don't know that I agree with you with police. The Federal Order of Police really doesn't help their officers when they're in trouble. And cops aren't out there to get you. They're just like everybody else. They want to get the bad guys and they want to go home at night. There's not some grand conspiracy to be militaristic and take over the people. Actually, it's the opposite. David, go to Chattanooga. Go to downtown Chattanooga tonight at 2 a.m. without a gun. A white guy walking through a black section, or a black person walking through a white poor section.
Well, let me ask you this. Caller, I've got 1 minute to ask you this question. Let's say it's late at night, it's dark, and you're at an intersection. You can walk either two ways. Down one way, you pass a motorcycle gang member with a beard and a helmet and some patches on. You can see in the street lamp over him. The other street has a police officer. He's just pulled up. And he's getting out of his car. Which way are you going to walk? You're going to walk toward the police officer, or you're going to walk toward the member of the motorcycle club?
Absolutely not towards the member of the motorcycle club.
Well, that's where I would walk. I would walk to the member of the motorcycle club because he has nothing against me. I'm not someone who's gonna be his victim. He may be rough. He may have a beard. He may have some missing teeth. He may smell bad. He may have a little alcohol in his breath, but he's not going to stop and harass me and say, "What are you doing here?" But if I go down the street where the police officer has just gotten out of his car and is walking toward me, I can expect a confrontation. I can expect him to demand, what am I doing there? He's going to demand for his own safety. If I'm asking me if I'm armed, he's going to say, "Well, why are you here?" I'm going to have to start explaining myself. And if I say, "Well, officer, do you suspect me of a crime?" In other words, if I stand my ground, he's going to push me against the wall, throw my hands up over my head, and he's going to pat me down. And then he's going to start demanding in his command voice information about who I am, where I am, what have I done, where am I going, whom have I met, and he's going to do that for his personal safety, right? He can rationalize anything he wants. And I think if I had a choice between going way A or way B, A is where the motorcycle club member is, I would probably walk toward him. And I'd say, "Hey, how's it going?" And he'd probably say, "Yeah, just get out of my face and let me pass." The other one is going to say, "Well, he's going to investigate me and he's going to confront me." The other man might confront me, but I think I could probably talk my way as I'm a kind of a talkative person. when I'm not my mild-mannered self, I think I could hold my own and be treated not unjustly, though perhaps maybe a little rudely. Well, this is David Tulis, and we have in Tennessee law something I think you might want to know about, and that's the relator law. It's in the provision of the Tennessee Code. It's Title 8, Chapter 47. It's about the removal of officers. And I was talking a moment ago with State Representative Rick Womick, who is a defender of marriage, and he thinks I think what he needs to do is read the statute because he seemed a little bit dismissive of my discussion of it. If you want to find out more about this statute, you want to go to the website for the man who matters, and that's Nooganomics.com. That's the website of which I'm the editor. And I've written about this relator statute before, and in fact, I said that the relator statute is worse than a hemorrhoid in the gay marriage situation for the party who wants to have a homosexualized culture and a homosexualized state government. And the hemorrhoid is that 10 people like you, my listener, come together, and if you want, let's say, to impeach and to remove, let's say, Mayor Burke, Andy Burke of Chattanooga, let's just say he's done something pernicious, and you want to remove him, you can sue him in court. And I think the statute says which courts. I think it's sessions, or it's a circuit or criminal. You can or chancery. You can sue him for removal. And of course, you'd want to have some kind of cause for it, and maybe something that's not just political. But this is not a recall. Okay, this is better than a recall. It is a case in which you have a judge, and you have I believe you have a jury. I'm not sure these are in bank or judge only trials, but what you do is let's say that you are one man. Let's say you're the only man in Chattanooga who does not like Governor Haslam, and you do not like the way Governor Haslam rolled over dead, had the limp wrist in front of the gay onslaught. Well, so what you have to do is you have to find 9 other men. Maybe you can't. Maybe it's just you. Maybe just you alone are the only person who thinks that we have surrendered ourselves and that we are in a deep and downward spiral, as people are telling me that we are. Well, let's say you, my listener, are the only person who believes that way. Well, if you can somehow find 9 people in the whole state, and your target is Governor Haslam, well, what you do is you create a committee, and it's under the authority of the following statute, 847-110. That's the Tennessee Code annotated. Here's the number, 847-110. And you can find it online, right? The Tennessee Code is online at LexisNexis. Just Google Tennessee Code annotated in Google or Start Page, your favorite search engine, Start Page maybe. And there you go. You'll find it, and it's for 847-110. And what happens is you file representing the state itself. You file against Governor Haslam, the Republican, right? The Republican who betrayed marriage, and the Republican who betrayed his oath before God. And what you do is there's a really clear cause. Even though he had legal advice, and you could say he was acting in good faith, he did violate the Constitution by not defending it, and not defending particularly the marriage provision, which says that there is no outside authority that has anything to say about marriage except we, the people of our state, right? 81% of us voted to have marriage as between one man and one woman. So in this, there's a petition filed in the name of the state, which means that you, my listener, and the 9 other men are relators. You relate a grievance in the name of the state. And in all cases, this case may be filed without the concurrence of any of such officers, right? The governor doesn't have to agree with this, right? Upon the relation of 10 or more citizens and freeholders of the state, county or city, as the case may be, upon their giving the usual security for costs. So what you're doing is you have a grievance, and this is the highest order of grievance you can have, right? That the governor violated his oath to uphold the Constitution. There's no this is not a political mistake. Okay? This is a legal disaster, a walking legal disaster, which is Governor Bill Haslam. Well, in your efforts, you you file it with the court, and I'll have to tell you maybe tomorrow I'll just read about it on my website, what the court is. I think it's chancery, but it could be circuit. It is the duty of the Attorney General and reporter, that's Herbert Slattery, upon request of relator citizens and freeholders, to aid and assist in the prosecution of such proceedings against state officers. So in other words, if it's a state officer, the Attorney General has to help you on your request, right? He has a duty if you ask for it, right? If your committee of 10 asks for his help, he has to help you. It is a, quote, a duty, unquote. Now, if you're suing against a county official, let's say Bill Knowles, our Christian whose courage was shown in capitulating to gay theory, well, then you have the request of the district attorney general. And if it's a town official, well, then you have the city attorney. If you request, he has a duty under the statute 847-111 to aid and assist in your prosecution. So in other words, you have free legal help, right? It's free for now, right? There may be a bite at the end of it. And upon like request, the law says to aid and assist in the prosecution of such proceedings against municipal officers other than themselves. Well, the statute goes on to say that there can be additional counsel for prosecution. The governor may, it says, in all cases, by and with the concurrence of the Attorney General and reporter, to employ on behalf of the state additional counsel to aid in the prosecution of such proceedings. Well, of course, now, if this committee is suing Governor Haslam under the relator statute, he is not going to hire people and bring in more people to help Mr. Slattery, who's supposed to help the committee throw Governor Haslam out of office, right? That's not going to happen, even though he may, it just says he may do that if he wants to. And to aid in the prosecution of such proceedings, here's the language now. Whenever the default charge involves here are the grounds, the failure or neglect of the accused to perform the accused's duty under any laws or laws of the state. So the prosecution by you and 9 other men is that he failed or neglected to perform a duty under any law or laws of the state. That's quoting the Tennessee Code. So here, think about this is a very empowering measure, right? This is kind of revolution or counter-revolution built into the statute. Tennessee laws lets the people throw out a malefactor. Governor Haslam appears to be a malefactor. I have suggested that he appears to be an atestosteronal political figure who agrees that marriage is between Jim and Joe. He violated his oath of office, no less. That's probably the main thing, is that he's offended God, right? He may have offended 1 or 2 other people in the state and you, but more importantly than that, he has offended God himself by rejecting marriage and rejecting the state's interest in its definition of marriage. The law goes on to talk about the form and contents of the petition. It is filed on relation, and it is the people who are filing it can amend their action if they want to. There's room for summons. The governor is summoned upon the filing of the complaint or petition for the writ of ouster is what you're asking for. You're asking for a writ of ouster. A summons shall issue for the defendant. Governor Haslam will be served papers by you and the 9 other men, and there shall accompany the summons and be served upon the defendant a copy of the complaint or petition filed against the defendant, and the defendant shall have the right to answer within 20 days. So the governor has 20 days to answer the committee as to this effort. Now, let me ask you this: are there 2 people in Hamilton County who would want to form this committee? 10 people can sue the governor. They can be anywhere in the state. They don't have to be in Hamilton County. But you, my listener, are in Hamilton County, and you know maybe one other person who cares about marriage and who cares about constitutional government. Well, if you do, why don't you do something? Why don't you do something? Do we have to always have somebody else do something for us? Do we have to rely on a courageous state legislator such as Rick Womick to get the General Assembly to impeach the governor? Well, that's not going to work, and he knows it. He more or less admitted that it will be impossible to get the General Assembly to impeach the governor for malfeasance of office, for neglect of his office. What about you? If there's one other person plus you, and if you can find together 8 other people, some people you know, you can say, well, we're going to defend God and country. We're going to defend marriage. And we're going to do it here. All of us know each other. Yes, there are perils ahead. There are possible costs that might come to our committee. But we're going to fight.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 12.